So it's my pleasure to introduce today Julie Resnick, who's the Managing Director of Wonderman, sponsor of today's speaker, if you will. Andrew Sherrard, who's the Senior Vice President at T-Mobile Marketing. Julie leads a team of, and it's a large team, 400 professionals, advertising pros, working with all numbers of clients across the spectrum of businesses. Microsoft, Group Health, Adidas, my favorite running shoe, years past, not anymore. I've grown up to New Balance. Wonder how that happened. Puget Sound Energy, The Gap, and of course T-Mobile. In 2012, she was honored by the Puget Sound Business Journal, top 40 under 40, and has earned numerous awards. And as well, last year, T-Mobile was awarded the B2B responsibilities by, Wonderman was awarded by T-Mobile to carry what they had been doing earlier forward even more. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Julie here today with us, and in turn to introduce our guest speaker.
Thanks for the introduction, Merle, and for all of you, so you know I am over 40 now, so we won't talk about that any further. So now, I know I'm not the only person you're here to see, so I'll obviously be quick, but I do have a few words to say about the speaker this afternoon. I'm thrilled to welcome one of our longtime client partners and friends, Andrew Sherrard. Andrew, as Merle mentioned, serves as Senior Vice President at Marketing at T-Mobile and has been a driving force behind the company's Un-carrier movement, which has turned the wireless industry on its head simply by making the customer the top priority. Andrew's willingness to challenge the status quo and overhaul nearly every customer communication has distinguished T-Mobile as an industry leader and innovator. Last fall, the Direct Marketing Association awarded T-Mobile Marketer of the Year for their efforts in not only revolutionizing direct marketing, but the wireless industry all up. We're proud to play a part in that journey, and I hope that as fellow marketers, you'll take inspiration in T-Mobile's amazing turnaround story that Andrew will share today, and also join the 400 people at Wonderman in being very happy T-Mobile customers. So with that, I'd like to welcome Andrew to the stage so he can share more about how he and his amazing team have brought the Un-carrier to life. All yours.
Thanks, Julie. It is great to be here, and I had no idea you were so young. Yeah. So, you know, let's go. I learn something. You learn something new every day. So I'm Andrew. I've been at T-Mobile for about 11 years, and I want to share with you a story today about how over the past year we became the Un-carrier and what that means. And I think it'll help no matter what team you're on, whether you're working professionally or a student, and you can apply some of the things some of the principles that we've learned about how we went about it, kind of peel back the curtain, roll back time a little bit, and tell you what it was like to create what has become a great phenomenon, a great movement in the market, really focused on giving customers what they want, being a true advocate for customers. So I'm going to highlight a few things that I think will be helpful for anyone who's thinking about how do I continue to grow my business. So if you've been around the past year, it's actually been exactly a year since we launched Un-carrier. Exactly a year ago, we were in New York, getting ready to go, and frankly, really hoping it would work. Because this was the bet the company moment, right? This was the moment when we were going to tear up the contracts and we were going to make it different. But before we get to where we were a year ago, what I want to do is I want to kind of go back a year prior to that, about 18, 24 months ago, and tell you how we came up with the ideas that we did that helped turn the company around. So let's see, there we go. So this is what it looked like from my seat at the beginning of 2012. So about February 2012, we had a lot going for us. We didn't have any LTE. By then, Verizon was national. We didn't have the iPhone. We negotiated with them a few times, but it hadn't come to be yet. We just, pretty much been questioned the existence of the company because we were supposed to merge with AT&T, and then the Department of Justice said no. And we brought in a couple of great teams, including Wonderman, and started talking about what are we going to do? What's our go-forward plan? And I remember very distinctly sitting in a conference room as we were kind of going over all the data, and one of the folks who was helping us said, okay, so we do this for a living. We occasionally, we come in, we help brands, we help them when they're when they need to rethink their strategy. But what's most surprising here is that you have absolutely no differentiation. You used to win on price value, but you don't anymore. You've always lost on coverage, and you don't even win on technology anymore. So you're kind of 0 for 3 on the key purchase drivers, you know. And as we're all marketers here, okay, so what's my consideration? How do I get purchase? So we are 0 for. And so, you know, it was you know, a little bleak, but as my team will attest, I'm always a glass half full guy. I'm like, all right, we can figure this out. We can really come at it a different way. And you know, and it was important, I think, at that moment to say, like, you know what, we have to approach this completely differently. One of my peers said to me, as we were interviewing different folks around the company, you know, as you always do on these big projects, you're like, okay, let's go talk to all the senior leaders. And he said, I kind of feel like I'm in that movie 127 Hours, and I'm stuck in the desert, and I'm just looking at which arm I have to, you know, lop off in order to survive. And but what that does, that kind of existential crisis, let's call it, makes you really think carefully about what you're about and why you're doing what you're doing and what it is you want to be. And you're probably not surprised. Basically, our strategy had been, let's be like the other guys, but a little bit cheaper. You know, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, and here's the results. In 2012, we lost 2 million customers, and if you look underneath those numbers at our postpaid numbers, which is kind of the most important part of the business, it would be even more dire. And so we were shedding customers. We were America's fastest shrinking wireless company. So not a place you want to be, right? Pretty bleak. And so what you had to do is you had to really think about what is it that we're trying to do. And so we started down this journey, and really the question that we came to and the result that we came to was, you know what, we can do this completely differently. We can be consumer advocates for the customer, right? We can give customers what they want in this category, and that's really easy to say, right? It's really easy to actually kind of roll out the platitudes and be like, oh, we're all about customers. But in order to do that, you have to really take seriously what customers want. And here you can see that in 2013, we turned it completely around. At the end, I'll show a snazzy video that'll make you feel good. It makes me feel good every time I see it. But 4.4 million, right? You think about the delta there. In 1 year, we went and changed our business trajectory from losing 2 million to gaining 4 million. A change of over 6 million. Pretty impressive in a very competitive industry. When you think about this industry, the most advertised in the US. Verizon spends over $1 billion in paid media every year. AT&T spends nearly $1 billion, probably 850. T-Mobile only spends roughly 450 million in measured media, right? Publicly reported, 450 million. And we were like the little guys. Like that gives you a 12 or 13% share of voice. And so in that competitive industry, how did we turn it around? Well, really, it was pretty simple. And we didn't start here, but this is where we ended. We had to answer the question, why do we exist? And it's a pretty fundamental question. It's why do I get up and go to work every morning at T-Mobile? Why do my peers do the same thing? And you could say, in this category, if T-Mobile didn't exist, would anybody miss us? Would any customers miss us? And frankly, as you can see from where we were in 2012, the answer is probably no, right? The answer, sadly, was no. The other thing you have to say is, if T-Mobile didn't exist, would someone create that company? And again, in 2012, the answer was no. So we went on a journey. We kind of looked at the category and we said, all right, what is it about this category that people like, don't like? What's the kind of classic consideration research? And as we got into it, what we really found was, you know what? You need to understand that people just generally don't like the industry. They don't like the pain of contracts. They think they're unfair. They don't like the complexity of rate plans. They generally kind of put things in a way that reminds you of what happens when you go into a car dealership. Anybody gone and bought a car lately? Anybody? I actually bought a car this past weekend. And what did I do before I went and bought the car? I did all my research. I made sure I knew how much it was going to cost me. Okay, I'm going to go see the finance guy. He's not going to get the paint on me this time. The guy got the paint on me last time. He's not going to do that. Does anybody enjoy buying a car? Is that a fun experience? Generally speaking, when people talk about wireless, they say, you know what? It's about like buying a car. And so when you really come down to it, what you have to do is think about why is it that we exist as a company? And again, there's some great work on this, whether it's Stengel with his book Grow, whether it's some of the TED Talks that Selkin has done, really provocative stuff. But when you actually go to apply it, you have to sit down and say, what are we going to do? What is it that we're going to actually going to create, and what are we going to stand for as a company? And where we landed was we're going to change wireless for the better. We're going to make this industry that is so ubiquitous and so important to every American. Penetration now, there's 280 million people using phones today, nearly the entire population. And it'll index way above 300 million by the time we're done when you think about all the Internet of Things and the connections that are going to happen. We're going to change this industry. We're going to stand and we're going to be counted as the people who are advocates for the consumers. We're about to go. I think to be successful, you have to do a couple of things. You have to do things really well. One, you have to have a compelling vision that answers that question. Why do we exist? What is it about us that is noteworthy? That is the source of brand differentiation, of course, but more importantly, it's a source of why you are who you are as a company. It also creates great kind of avenue in for employee engagement, right? Amazing engagement can come when people really believe, when they're fired up about what they do. The difference between my visits to the field this year and to call centers this year versus a year ago are completely night and day. And the reason is people buy into what they're doing. Like, I know what I'm doing what's right for the customer. And in a second, I'll talk about, that's, again, a pretty high-level statement. You then have to translate that into some specific principles that you're going to apply across your business. So first, you've got to find a compelling purpose, right? Why do you exist? What are you about? And that has to be something that's going to unite the company, that's going to make it work. We have to have a profitable, growing company in order for our company to continue to thrive. And that means that whatever your purpose is, you have to be able to do it within a system that will give you the right outcome you need, whether that's profit, whether that's knowledge, whatever it may be. There's other outputs that are kind of bounds within which you have to work. But you got to find that purpose. The second thing you got to do is get everybody on board. And we spent a tremendous amount of time doing that. Not surprisingly, from my first slide, you can see that we had a fair amount of turnover at our C-level suite, right, with our senior leaders. And so every time we had somebody new come in, we had to make sure we were all on board. But once we got on board, we absolutely were completely committed, which is the third thing. You got to be committed and execute boldly with a lot of conviction around what you're doing. And that means challenging all the norms that you might have about whatever area or team you're working on, so that you can do this really well and really differently. If you have a clear purpose, you get your team committed to it, and then you execute boldly, it actually makes change much easier. So as we got everybody on board with the vision, we said, here's the 4 principles, right? We're going to be fair. What does that mean? That means we're not going to do service contracts anymore because they're totally one way. And that was probably the one that generated the most debate, because ever since the dawn of the industry, all 20 years ago, right, we had done contracts. And it's pretty simple why you do a contract in a wireless industry. It turns out that this phone, hang on, here's my iPhone. We did get an iPhone eventually. It was a happy day. Happy day. It was April 12th of last year. We sold 108,000 the first day. I still remember. It was a Saturday. It was a great day. So iPhone costs you $650. A carrier, though, wants you to sign up with a plan today. Nobody wants to pay $650. It's America, right? We want to finance most of that. So what happened was we sell it to you. It costs us, Apple charges us and every other carrier $650. And then we sell it to you for what? $199, right? Do the math. The difference is $450. Guess what? I've now given Julie this beautiful piece of hardware, and I got $450 I kind of need back for my economic money, because I promised my boss we'd make money on the deal with Julie. So what we do is we get a service contract, and we say, Julie, good news, happy iPhone, can't upgrade for a year. Can't upgrade for 2 years. And you're kind of stuck. And if our service doesn't work, I kind of gave you this phone. I know it doesn't work, but I gave you this phone. It's $450. How's that? That doesn't work for me. And so what we had to do was really come to grips with the idea that we had to be much more transparent. And we had to admit that those phones cost $650 and that the pricing in the industry is completely screwed up, and we need to rearrange how it was. But once you start from the place of, I'm going to make it easy and simple and fair, and you know what? I'm going to get everybody service that I'd want to give to my mom or my brother or my best friend. It gets really easy. to figure out what you need to do. What gets really hard is figuring out what the numbers need to be to make all of it fit together. For us, what that meant was we had to promise really big growth in our business in order for this to work. We had to promise really big reduction in the number of people who stayed with us. We call it churn, people who leave, deacts. And that really translated into some very strong debates internally about whether or not we could actually get to lower churn. In other words, have people be more loyal to us if we didn't have a contract. And in thinking through this, it seems illogical that people would be more loyal if you don't have a contract. What's more surprising is that what we've seen is our churn has actually dropped by 1/3. And I believe it's a very simple reason. People actually feel they've been treated fairly, right? So when you start from a point of customer advocacy and you treat people fairly, guess what? They actually appreciate that, and they want to stay with you longer. Simply because it's a fair deal, it's transparent. I now understand. I don't feel like I'm trapped. I've made a decision, right? I'm now part of this pact with you. Now it's actually you're creating a much more straightforward relationship with the customer. But as you can imagine, we had a lot of debates internally about what would happen when the contract was torn up. Because if it went the other way, I wouldn't be standing here, frankly. Nobody would want to hear about it. If I went the other way, we would have had much higher churn, and the model would have broken down. But so when you make a bet, it's actually easy to see what the right thing to do is once you have a clear purpose. Let's be customer advocates. What does it mean to be fair? It means to tear up the contract. Ooh, wow, okay. And as we said in there, everybody knew we had to basically take a big leap off the cliff, so to speak. You kind of think of that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, right? They jump into the river, right? It's a dramatic scene. But as we said, we just want to make sure there's water underneath us when we're jumping off the cliff. So to make sure we're going, and you know what? You can't research. There's some things you can't research, and these are the kind of things I don't think you can completely research. You can get some ideas. You can learn how to position. You can learn how to talk about it. But you can't actually research a dramatic change in the business model. You just have to decide that this is what we stand for, and if this is what we stand for, we're going to exist. Then that has these implications. We stand for customer advocacy. We need to be fair. We need to tear up the contract. And then once you make that decision, you say, okay, we're going to exist or not with that, because that's why we exist. And it's only by having that connection back to why do we exist that actually allows you to make those really tough decisions. Then I think you have to, from a team standpoint, one thing that worked for me really well as we went through this and for my team and my peers is that we had a lot of trust. A lot of trust in each other in that we had one plan, we had one bet. If this didn't work, nothing else really mattered. So kind of the mental model that I always had is it's like you're gambling and we're going to push all our chips into the center. So we use that conversation and that imagery a lot. Everybody has to put all their chips into the center, and that's our bet. And that's our only bet, and we're going to be completely dependent on each other to deliver. So it's a lot about trust, cross-functionally and up and down. And then it's a lot about being very accountable. If I'm the marketing guy, and the business model says I'm going to deliver a 25% increase in traffic, I have to do whatever I need to do to get that 25% lift in traffic. And my counterpart on the retail side, Amy, needs to deliver that increase in conversion she promised. And together we're going to deliver the bottom line. But it's about being, once you've agreed this is why we exist, it becomes much easier to make those bigger, bolder bets and really help the company move to a different place. And I think what's really exciting for me about our purpose is it gives us a real evergreen point of view about the industry. I think we've started it. I think we've started some change internally, but I can see that we have a long, long ways to go, and we're still learning. And there'll always be more customer pain and more customer advocacy to go get. Also being simple, of course, really important, complex category. Delivering a great value, that does go back to some of our heritage as a brand. And lastly, listening to the consumer, right? We want to do what's right by the consumer and empower our front line and our teams to be able to do that every time and easily. So how does that translate into some advertising, into some marcom? Well, you start with this notion of that we're going to be a maverick on a mission. That's going to be our tone, right? That's going to be how we sound and how we look and feel in the market. And we're not about creating a brand as much as we are about creating a movement and doing it differently. Because when you're being outspent, 3 or 4 or 5 to 1 by your competitors, you can't outspend them. You cannot win the arms war. You can only win the conversation. But when you start from a point of view that says we have a differentiated purpose in who we are, which is to be a customer advocate, then we can absolutely do it. And so we've seen over the past year a change where maybe 8% or so of folks used to hear about us from earned media and social media. Today, 25 or 30% do. So a dramatic shift in where they get their information. And we've leveraged, I think, pretty effectively the earned media to tell a story. And again, go to the place where you can win the conversation, which is, it doesn't matter how much Verizon spends or AT&T spends when I'm sitting down and having an interview with a reporter or talking to a blogger or whoever, putting out a point of view on social. It just matters what you say and how well you say it. So, this is the kind of stuff we started running. A stupid, broken, arrogant industry. Don't play by the rules, break them. That kind of summarizes, I think, at a macro level, a lot of our campaigns. I'll play a few at the end and happy to answer any questions. But really, it's about having, once you start with that purpose and you then let that come through the product and come through the communication, it becomes really quite effective. Other things, so let me just give you a quick walk through what we actually did to apply the fair, simple, great value, and customer advocacy point of view. Number one, Simple Choice about a year ago, and really jumped off that cliff and said, we're done with contracts, right? We're going to eliminate contracts. We're going to eliminate overages, which is also a classic industry play, which comes from a very logical point of view again, right? I've just spent tens of billions of dollars on my network. I want to maximize that return. And the way I do that is I maximize capacity against the amount of, I got finite capacity. I try and get as much out of it. If you go over your bucket, even though you don't know what a bucket is or how many minutes you're going to use, I'm going to charge you a just kind of really super high rate, overage, so that you don't use more and you'll learn. Or I get great profits when you do that. So we eliminated overage because we said, that's not fair. No one knows how much you're going to use. Let's make all our plans unlimited. Unlimited text, unlimited talk, unlimited data. And on the being fair and simple and straightforward, let's sell high-speed data. Let's give everybody a base level of data, and then let's sell high-speed data. And then, but make it really, we'll embed a bunch in the base plan. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make it easy for you to get more every month if you want it. And if you want to stay up there, you can. If you don't want to, come back down. So far at the end of 2013, we've had 12 million Americans activate on our Simple Choice plans. They've had higher SAT, lower churn, and generally been very satisfied with the product. Then kind of the map of what we did over the year. And I can't believe it was only a year, but we basically lined up all the things that we thought were huge pain points in the industry for consumers. One is kind of my little role play here with Julie. It used to be that if you got a phone from a carrier, the deal was you could upgrade in 2 years, right? That's the length of your contract. But you basically, depending on how good you were and how profitable you were, the carrier might come to you at 18 months and say, no, really, Julie, we want you to upgrade because I'm worried you and your 4 lines are going to leave, so you could upgrade early. Somebody else, no, not so much. You're not as profitable. We're going to tell you when you can upgrade. And because the carrier controlled the subsidy, it was really easy to kind of like toggle the volume around. So we said, no, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make it much simpler. We're going to let people upgrade when they want. We're going to bundle insurance. We're going to bundle in and the ability to turn in your phone whenever you want to, and get a new one. And we're going to charge for that. We're going to be simple. We're going to be transparent because guess what? It costs money. So let's be transparent about that. Seeing great uptake on that product, but it really addresses the pain of upgrading your phone on your terms, not on the carriers. Then 3.0 was about international roaming. Has anybody ever gotten a big bill when they've gone overseas and they've left their phone on? A few of you, yeah? Even as an employee for 11 years, I turned off my phone when I went overseas until we launched this. Really, billions in kind of what I would think of as monopolistic might be strong, but unfair profits certainly. In that, the margins on roaming fees are in the 85–90% range, and I know because I see the other side. And they would say, oh, the costs are so high, we can't do it. Again, we said, no, you know what? That's wrong. Like it's 2014. Let's let people use phones in Canada, Mexico, Europe, Asia, like they would at home. Let's let them use them just like they would. And we can do that because, unlike our competitors, we don't have a big base of business travelers who are going all the time. And you know what? Again, consumer advocacy, it's the right thing to do. It's the right way to do it. So let's just roll into all those Simple Choice plans, unlimited data and unlimited texting when they're overseas. Again, a great program. On tablets, we said, why do people not have more cellular connected tablets? 95% of all tablets are Wi-Fi only. let's make them connected all the time. Let's light them up all the time. So we're like, let's give free data anytime you buy an iPad or another Android tablet. So again, hitting those kind of pain points. Why should you have to hunt for a Wi-Fi hotspot? Use it like you want. And then lastly, and I think 4.0 was probably our biggest move in terms of really getting the industry to change. We said, you know what, if we're against contracts and we've eliminated them ourselves, why are we tolerating the idea that other people are stuck in contracts? Because when you sign a family plan, they have this thing that is really kind of clever, which is staggered ETFs, right? So that means Julie's first line, yeah, maybe the contract ends today, but then she wants that new phone, so she signs up for a new phone. And maybe her husband's line is on a cycle where he upgrades in 6 months. And then her oldest son's line is 6 months after that, and so on. So it's not a 2-year contract. It's an endless contract. So we basically said, let's pay your early termination fees. It was really interesting when people started asking us about this. They're like, well, is this a promotion? How long is the promotion going to last? We're like, no, it's not a promotion. It's a point of view. And it's a point of view because for you guys, it comes back from our customer advocacy. We're here to change wireless for the better. So we'll end this program when all 150 million contracts are gone in the U.S. wireless industry. That's how many there's 154. I think they're down to about 150 now. And this has been certainly the thing that has unlocked a bunch of growth for us, but more importantly, I think it's started the dialogue inside the industry and started to catalyze change in the industry. And our competitors, Verizon and AT&T, are responding and changing the way they do things because they're being forced to. So again, it's not about a promotion. It's about doing things as a point of view and as a philosophy that come from, one, finding your purpose, being really committed to it, and then executing in a way that's very accountable to everybody on the team. So I'm going to roll a quick video here of that just kind of recaps a little bit of the sizzle reel, some of our commercials, some of the press, and some of the things that we've seen over the past year.
In the world besides a wireless industry person that would understand why the hell this mess works this way. And the worst fear of the wireless industry is that somebody from outside Oz comes in and starts looking at their industry.
T-Mobile is breaking away from the traditional model.
This is fundamental about changing the game.
This is serious philosophical change forever in our business.
Where do you bet on in terms of the growth?
I can tell you where a lot of my customers are coming from. It's a small company called AT&T.
T-Mobile, they seem to be really going at each other.
It's a battle royale right now between those two.
This could become standard.
There's still a lot of buzz surrounding T-Mobile CEO John Legere being escorted out of that AT&T party.
Don't they just want to take this guy out in the back alley and really just give him a beat down?
I might take myself in the alley, try to punch myself. I'm just doing exactly what any of you would do to get the balls to do it.
You're the only CEO out there who has the balls to say balls on national television. You are
The first broadcaster on television to say balls right there, so we're a pair.
You know why?
Just getting started.
So we do have a colorful CEO. And I was joking beforehand that if we'd gone to central casting, and John actually came in after we dreamed up some of this stuff, and thank God he is very bold and understands kind of the strategy and bought into it. And if you kind of dreamed up who your perfect CEO was, he'd probably be the guy, right? We talk about our brain as a maverick on a mission, and that's exactly him. And it's great because when you have someone who's willing to get out there and really get in your face and be aggressive and be bold and be provocative, it certainly helps. And as a challenger, you need that. You need that, right? We were not in the conversation in 2012 when we were the fastest shrinking. To be the fastest growing, you got to be willing to kind of put yourself out there and put your money where your mouth is and be brash and bold. And he does a great job of it. So I will do my. How many of you guys are T-Mobile customers? Okay, good. Good to see you guys, agency partners. Always note to self. So I've got a great room here. I still have numbers to hit today. I'm actually taking a couple hours off, so I want to make sure that you guys know. There's a T-Mobile store close by. Okay? I still have to hit my traffic numbers for Amy. So if you could swing by Bellevue Square or somewhere else, just tell them Andrew sent you. They'll give you a great deal. The good news is another part of the philosophy is we treat everybody the same. Whether it's a new customer or a current customer, we treat them all the same, and we basically think that's the way you'd want to be treated, so that's how we do it. But you guys should come check us out, of course, at least to understand kind of what we're about and where we're going. But more importantly, kind of my challenge to you and where I'll leave this before I take questions is, why do you guys exist? When you think about your roles at your companies or with your teams, why do you exist? Why is it you get up every morning, and why do you go to work? Or why do you go to your classes? And what is it that you're really trying to accomplish? What is the reason that you're there, right, for your organization? I think you can ask this anywhere, and I think it's a great question, and it can take us all to be much, much more effective. I'm a Seattle native. I love the town. I want to see us win. Part of my motivation, I want T-Mobile to stay here. There's only one way we're staying here. We've got to start growing and start winning again. I want to see all you guys be incredibly successful as well here in the Puget Sound area. And to do that, you have to ask those tough questions. If we didn't exist, would anybody miss us? If we didn't exist, would the market or anybody else bother to create our organization? And then once you answer that question, answer it well and in a way that works for the outcomes you need, whether that's profit or knowledge or whatever it may be. Are you willing to really step up to the plate and do the things that are required to really live true to that mission? If you can do that and get your team on board, you can turn anything around. You can turn anything around. We turned around. If you'd been sitting there with me in February of 12 in that conference room, you would not have said, you know what, in 2 years, you're going to be standing in front of the Puget Sound AMA and you're going to be talking about this radical success because you're now America's fastest growing wireless company. We're like, can we survive? Can we keep going? Right? That was more, if you believe in what you're about and you get a bunch of other people to believe, and it doesn't take many, you can certainly change any industry or change anything that you tackle. So that's my challenge to you guys, and I'd be happy to take questions that you guys may have about what happened at T-Mobile and how we got it done. Yeah.
How are you overcoming the coverage issue? Because that's the association with T-Mobile's coverage, right?
Yeah. So the question was, for those that didn't hear it, how is T-Mobile addressing the coverage issue? It's kind of the 40% of the consideration of the category comes from coverage. And I'd say so far, we're really not. What we've done so far is we've started to address the negatives, right? So now we have America's fastest nationwide LTE network. We got LTE nationwide. That helped a lot. And among our base and among people who are thinking about switching, who do the research, they find like, oh, wow, that network's pretty good, right? Oh, it's the fastest. It's got the few drop calls, et cetera. So I'd say in the conversation, we're winning. What we haven't done yet is address it super broadly in a campaign. So that's one of the things we're working on from an external standpoint. I think we got room to go there, room to go. Great question. Thank you.
I got a question. When y'all went all in, I don't need a microphone. My God, I'm loud enough. Put all your chips in the table. You guys went all in, basically,
yeah.
Right? How many years did you give yourselves to accomplish these ultimate goals? Like you just were talking about coverage, and you're getting there, right? So
yeah.
How much time did you give?
So we said our goal was to get back to growth. We thought growth was the most, in a business like ours, growing customers is like your oxygen. So you have to grow. Once you start growing, you get a lot more freedom of kind of movement. So our goal was to grow to go +1 on our postpaid business by December of 2013. That was our goal. So, and we said if we accomplished that, and we thought we needed to take some equities up, if we accomplished that, we'd be successful. And obviously, we went a little faster.
You spoke kind of in the middle there a little bit about how you couldn't compete in the in the traditional media space in the arms race with some of your competitors, and decided to focus instead on winning the conversation. What were some of the specific initiatives you guys took to do that? Because it sounds like kind of a grassroots thing, like kind of building it person to person. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we did is we came up with a strategy that we internally call signature moves. So the slide I showed earlier with the 1.0, 2.0, I'll flip back to it. Every time we did one of those, what we did is we worked very hard to create a moment in time where we were the conversation, certainly in the industry, and as far beyond it as we could be. So it was less grassroots, and it was more very much planned. And so a couple things that worked to our advantage. One, John's very colorful. Reporters like colorful, and they'll show up for combative, quotes. So that definitely worked in our favor. Two, we had real news, right? The fact that a major national carrier is getting rid of its contracts, taking a price reduction, that helped. So every time we had real news. We're an industry that's very covered. So there's reporters, there's 20 reporters that cover us all the time. And so you get them in a room, you tell them something newsworthy, and you create a wave of publicity that's followed by a wave of social, and then you hit advertising right after that. So that one basic strategy was create moments in time where we, shoot the moon, right, and go for it which creates this kind of its own set of anxiety about like, okay, what if we don't pull it off? What if we don't get the coverage? But we, just some stats. We trended on Twitter every time, every day, every one of those days we did. The biggest one being our last one, and we've kind of decided like that was a lot, and so you can wear out your welcome a little bit. So we're taking a little bit of a break right now because you can't keep pulling the same trick every time, so the same strategy every time with earned and social in particular. So that was one. Then on social, we got really engaged. We went from 500,000 fans in the middle of 2012 to 5 million fans today, and so we spent a lot of time creating more engaged and engaging fans around the things we were doing. And once you have a point of view that's consumer advocacy, it becomes a lot easier to generate the social. I'd say the other thing, though, that we did is we flipped our media strategy around completely, and we started going for, instead of going for reach broadly, we focused much more around what we call conversation piece TV things. So think, Mad Men, Walking Dead. So we concentrated our media much more heavily around places we thought people would have conversation, and we judged that a bunch of ways by Twitter and all those kind of things, what people were commenting on, because we want to be where the conversation was happening. So we actually we gave up some broad reach and some frequency to buy into shows that were more topical. So more sports, more high prime kind of stuff. So those were three of the tactics we used.
So first, thank you for hearing our pain as customers, because cell phone contract sucks. But so my question is this a sustainable competitive advantage, or is it something where in a few years when you change the norms of the industry, is there barriers to imitation? So Verizon and AT&T can't do the same thing and put T-Mobile out of business. Is there actual barriers, or are you guys going to have to think of something innovative of what's next?
Yeah, I think there's some barriers, as with anything. Eventually anything can be copied. You've seen them, like on Jump, they were working on a similar idea. They must have been, because they came out a couple weeks after we did, and Verizon followed, them being AT&T, and Verizon followed as well. Definitely, I do think it's sustainable, because, again, it's a point of view. It is not and it's a philosophy. It's not just these things, right? So if you just yesterday, for instance, the head of AT&T Wireless, Ralph De La Vega, was at a Rutberg conference, and he said, there's no problem with cell phone bills in the U.S. $140 for us, Verizon and Sprint. And if you just read his comments and like where it was coming from, he's still exactly where he was, which is like, yeah, I'm going to respond to these guys in the most efficient, logical, rational carrier view that I can, because I still want to maintain my 40% plus margins. So I think they'll struggle to copy us for a couple reasons. One, huge gross margin hit from their perspective. Two, we're going to keep going. And I think the bigger change will come when we transform the internal processes and business practices inside of T-Mobile. I think we've changed our offers and our point of view and our brand, but I don't think we've transformed the internal workings of T-Mobile. And once we do, if we do that and do it really well, excuse me, that'll be very difficult to copy. Grab a drink. Great question. Any other? We got one over here.
Hi there. So this was obviously a very large paradigm shift for T-Mobile. So my question is, what sort of internal marketing initiatives did you implement to get the company-wide buy-in? And obviously, as you mentioned, it's still a work in progress, but just implementation-wise, before you rolled out the program, how long did the internal marketing initiatives take place, and what kind of tactics did you use?
Good question. You know what? We actually, we didn't do any internal marketing. What we did was we aligned our leadership completely to the plan, and we put all of our plans for 2013 against these initiatives in total. And our internal marketing was actually those press announcements and the social. And so what we would do is, after each one of those, we were in New York for the 1.0, and right after that, we did a all-company webcast with John and talked about what we just did, because we actually wanted part of creating news is keeping it secret and making it a surprise. So we did it all after the fact. Now, John himself, I think, did a good job of just, talking, hey, we're going to grow again, we're going to grow again, we're going to grow again. But where we got people on board through each of the subsequent moves. And I think that's actually an opportunity for us for this year, is to bring Uncarrier more inside and actually transform some of the processes. But it was basically the press and the social was the campaign. Was the internal campaign, and then it started running from there, and the social really took off internal to the company, because there's a lot of care. I mean, we have 50,000 employees, so there's a lot of communication already happening internally through social and email and that kind of thing. And so we just adopted the same attitude and tone, and we're very bold and brash in how we talked about it. And we took every public announcement as an opportunity to bring people along. It was basically the strategy. So a little different maybe than other companies.
I have a two-part question. It has to do with the Uncarrier campaigns.
Sure.
The first question is, what was your primary target market?
Mm-hmm.
And the second question is, does the word Uncarrier supposed to harken back to 7-Up's Uncola campaigns in the 70s?
So Uncarrier, no, a lot of these things, they always look brilliant in hindsight, and you kind of evolve your way to them. So the Uncarrier thing just kind of was an internal handle that eventually we started using externally. We kind of like, what are we? Well, we're not those guys. And people reference that a lot internally, and then John started using it as he talked about it, and it just kind of took on its own life of its own, quite honestly. I think the other thing that we constantly try to do is we are much more responsive to the marketplace now. Whether it's social or PR or whatever it is, I get emails every day from customers directly or passed on to me by John and the other C-suite, and we take care, we deal with those, right? So which is different also than from kind of traditional carrier. Again, like, okay, we're about the customer's got a problem, how am I going to solve it? So Uncarrier just kind of evolved is the kind of the best way to answer that. I'm sorry, I forgot your first part.
And the other question was, what was your primary target market for those campaigns?
Basically, wireless customers. Yeah. So we're a pretty big tent brand.
Can you say mass market?
Yeah, we're pretty mass market. Yeah. So we did have a conscious strategy to move up market. So we were perceived as very low in the market. We did have a conscious strategy to move up market, so to go more prime, which we've done. So I'll take one more, and then I think I should hand it back off to the owners of the.
Sorry to disappoint everyone. This isn't really a marketing question. It's more a curiosity thing. How did your parent company, because T-Mobile is originally a German company, are you guys autonomous enough that they didn't freak out that you were completely pushing the norm, or did you have to convince them?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, we're still owned about 65% by Deutsche Telekom. And if you wanted an image of Deutsche Telekom, just think AT&T. So all the things we're kind of making fun of about the carrier, they absolutely do in their home market of Germany. That's been an interesting dance, I would say. But I'd say here's the thing. They recognize that, and this is why they decided to buy Metro and take the company public. They recognized they kind of needed to put their chips in the middle of the table too if they were going to get their kind of investment back. They bought VoiceStream at the time for about $30 billion in 2001. And so to get their full investment back, they actually need us to grow. They need us to be successful. They need us to be a great investment as well. And so there's always a conflict. There's an inherent conflict because they're a kind of a widows and orphans, a value stock valued mainly by their dividend. We're a growth stock valued mainly by how many net customers we add and how much it costs to get them. And so what they have done, though, and I got to give them complete credit because this was not easy, is they did fund in a really big way the capital that we needed to take the company public, to launch an LTE network, to buy the 700 megahertz spectrum, to merge with Metro, and that has put us on a path where we can now access the public markets. We still run, they're still on our board, they're a big part of our board, so we still run all our business cases by the board, and they still have a strong point of view, and there's healthy debate, but because some of these bets they're fairly risky, and they require you to believe in outcomes that are not always seen, but we do have a good track record now, so that helps. But the first, you know what, they were legitimately skeptical, as any shareholder should be. So that's how I'd answer that. So thank you guys so much. I enjoyed talking to you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.